Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Planning and Land Use Committee meeting for Tuesday, April 2nd. I'd like to first acknowledge with respect that we're meeting on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples, and we're honored to have the opportunity to build strong working relationships with the people of the Songhees and Kisepsum nations. There is an option for public participation. I don't believe we have anybody online. There were no written submissions. I now open the floor if there's anybody in the public who'd like to come forward. Seeing none, we will move to a approval of the agenda. Item 2.1, the Planning and Land Use Committee meeting minutes for April 2nd, 2024 be adopted as presented. Do I have a mover? Councillor Jansen. Moving to item 3, then adoption of the minutes, for the meeting of March 4th, 2024. The recommendation is that this committee approve those meetings. Do I have a mover for the minutes? James Perry, thank you. And a little out of order, there's also another opportunity for public participation because I jumped the gun. So if you change your mind, still a chance here, going once. So we'll move on. We're looking today at new business. So the first item in new business is item 5.1. I believe Kaitlyn's going to present on a development variance permit for 3341 Betula Place.
Thank you, Councillor Ward, and good evening, everyone. So I'm here to introduce item 5.1, development variance permit for 3341 Betula Place. Oh, yes, thank you. So the application proposes 2 variances to the land use bylaw to permit the construction of a pool with attached accessory building. The proposed variances are to permit a pool in the front yard and to increase the permitted height of an accessory building from 4 meters to 7.1 meters. So the subject property is located at 3341 Betula Place, as shown in the diagram here. So this property is located in the Triangle Mountain area, which is mainly composed of single-family homes. The property is zoned residential 1 and is within the official community plan hillside and shoreline neighborhood land use designation. So the subject property is also located within the hillside environmental and natural hazard steeply sloped development permit areas. So these areas have guidelines that promote the preservation of hillsides and the integration of development with the natural terrain. If the variance is approved, a development permit would be required and the applicable OCP guidelines would be reviewed at this time throughout the process. So the land use bylaw prohibits the location of a pool within the front yard. The front yard is defined as the area between the primary building and the front lot line. So on the subject property, due to the primary dwelling being located towards the rear, approximately 70% of the lot is considered the front yard. Additionally, the rear lot is largely composed of a steep slope. The proposed accessory building is located within the front yard on a less steep slope, over 10 meters from the lot line. As the proposed building is over 7.5 meters, as the proposed building exceeds the 7.5 meter front yard setback in the R1 zone, staff have no concerns with the proposed variance to permit a pool within the front yard. The land use bylaw permits a 4-meter maximum height for accessory buildings in residential zones. So the height is measured from the average natural grade to the midpoint of a sloped roof, in this case, the pergola roof. So the accessory building itself is within this permitted 4-meter height. However, the railings and pergola extend to 7.1 meters above the average natural grade. As the only features that extend above the permitted height are the railing and the pergola, and these have been designed to limit the visual impact. Staff have no concerns with the request to increase the height of an accessory building from 4 meters to 7.1 meters. So a development notification sign has been posted on the subject property. Additionally, notification postcards will be sent to neighboring properties within 75 meters in advance of the council decision. Committee may choose to recommend to council the staff recommendation, which is to approve the 2 requested variances. Alternatively, committee can decide to defer the requested variances for more information, to recommend the variances are denied, or another option as determined by committee. Thank you for your time, and I believe the applicant is also online to present to us well tonight.
Great. Thank you, Kaitlyn. I think we'll go next to the applicant. I believe Evan Peterson, the principal of Barefoot Planning, is online here. Welcome, Evan.
Thanks, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we've got you.
Okay. Sorry, I literally just just came home from holiday, so I apologize for being a few minutes late. And I heard the presentation by staff, and it covered the vast majority of what I was going to say anyway. So maybe what I'll do is just share my screen and just reiterate a couple things, and then not belabor the point and pass it back over to the committee. So yeah, I'll just skip through this as best I can and hit a couple of highlights because, as I said, this has already been mostly covered. My name is Evan Peterson, Barefoot Planning. I'm a consultant on behalf of the owner. So I think you already covered the 2 variances that we're looking for, as well as the site location, which is on Betula Place, quite a large site, 1,862 square meters. Really, this can be summed up pretty quick on just the next few slides. The rear yard, where the zoning bylaw would allow this pool and accessory building, is very steep. It's a naturalized area. It's quite beautiful. You can see how far back the primary dwelling here in gray is located on the lot, and so there's not really an option for locating the pool or the building elsewhere. So that's the reason for the siting near technically in the front yard. This is the design of what's being proposed. So it's a pool. Here's the hillside. It's tucked in, it's carved into the hillside with the accessory building taking advantage of the slope underneath. It's roughly running with the existing natural grade, and then this pergola on top providing weather protection over the pool. Again, as already mentioned, we have the front yard location proposed for the accessory building and pool. And then in terms of the height variance, the average grade comes out at 1.93 meters, which is this red line here. The allowable height takes us up partway up the railing. I don't know if your graphic is messed up. Mine's a little messed up for some reason, this export, but I think you get the idea. And then the pergola takes us up to 9 meters, which is just for that portion of the overall proposal. It's not the building itself. The building itself is well under the allowable height, as is the pool. Actually, the pool deck is at the same grade as the side yard of the site. And so it actually lines up quite nicely with the existing natural grade of the yard. A couple other things I'll just point out. As I said, the only things that extend beyond the existing side yard and are well within the permitted height are the railing and pergola structures, both of which are largely transparent with the exception of the vertical posts. Building sited to take advantage of already disturbed open grass lawn area rather than the native vegetation and steep slopes in the rear yard. It's quite far back from the public right-of-way, despite the fact that it's technically a front yard, and there's no views being blocked by this from the neighbors. Even the pergola, the top of the pergola is still below the first story height of the primary house. So it's quite low on the site despite the need for the height variance. And the final 2 things I'll say as part of our corresponding development permit applications, we've had an environmental assessment done by Corvidae Consulting, and they noted that this is entirely consistent with the DP guidelines and OCP policies, with minimal impact on the ecological elements of the site, maintains wildlife connectivity, minimal change to stormwater runoff, and no alteration to key environmental features. And then finally, also a geotechnical assessment was done, and RISEC Geotechnical concluded that there's no indication of slope instability or other geological failure hazards with the proposal. and that they consider the land maybe used safely as the use that's proposed. So I'll keep it to that because I don't continue to repeat myself, and I'm here to answer any questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Evan. Appreciate it. I'd now open it up to the committee for any questions of either Evan or Kaitlyn.
First, Keener. Hi, thank you for your time. When I looked at the sites over Google Earth imagery, it's pretty clear that there's been a fair amount of excavation that's pre-existing. So that brings me to a couple of questions just to familiarize myself with this particular area. Have there been existing variances, or is there a development permit, or like where are we in this process since ground has been broken and there appears to be development in flight already?
So I wasn't sure if that's direct to me or to staff.
Either.
So my client has begun some site preparation on the hillside, but no development permits. We're going through the development permit and DVP application process as we speak.
All right, and then so the one thing that is definitely clear is the proximity to the property line on the north side of the property. Is there any variance required there, or will you be within bylaw compliance?
We'll be within the bylaw for that one.
And then the other last thing that I was curious about, since it wasn't explicitly stated, what is the height of the pergola? Because I know that it's part of the variance overage, but like with some eyeballing math, I put it at 4 meters, which feels tall. But again, I don't have hard numbers.
Give me 1 second. I'll look that up while we're waiting for the next question.
Yeah, fair enough. I guess the only concern that comes from that is if it stands out as a structure with such heights. But beyond that, having the transparent side rails and the weather protective covering of the pergola, that is good. Definitely an eyebrow raiser that there's already ground broken.
Great. Thank you, James. And maybe while Evan looks to find the answer to the height question, I'll look to the floor, see if there's another question here at all. Michael?
Thank you, Evan. I just have a couple questions more related to the design, just to understand part of the philosophy behind what the building. It looks like the railing that goes around the edge of the pool looks like it's probably taller than a normal like safety railing, like a 1.2. Is there a particular design feature or the aesthetic that was chosen to make the railing so tall?
So I'm not the designer. I'm the planner supporting the design work. So my understanding is that it was a aesthetic choice for just I think it's a wood structure with supporting with clear glass at the sort of more regular height. Yeah, I can't say what the design aesthetic choice was, but that was the choice.
Okay, I was wondering whether there was a strong design intent for it or not. The other question has to relate, just building off to what James said, is the side yard does appear pretty close, and as you mentioned, it doesn't affect any views. Is the applicant willing to consider some sort of screening or landscaping along the edge that does give a bit of privacy or screens the building from their view?
I think they'd be open to that, yeah.
I think that's really all I had to ask.
Great, thanks, Michael. Councillor Jansen.
Thank you. I don't really have a huge problem with any of this, but there's no indication as to whether the direct neighbors are supportive or they're not, or what have you. You might not have that in front of you. Can you speak to anything on that?
Yeah, I've left I believe the direct neighbors are supportive of this. I've left that up to my client because he has a good relationship with them, and that's what I've heard through him. So I would have to report back on that, but that's what the information I've been given.
Gotcha. And I don't have a lot of knowledge about pools, but I do know that my understanding is part of the reason why you don't put them in the front yard is for reasons of safety, as far as people having access, more ready access to your pool, whether they should or they shouldn't, in the middle of the night or not. And so I can't tell whether there's sufficient, safety features built into this. And I get this is not a detailed design, but do you know if those discussions have been had? A duty to safeguard the pool from young people.
Yeah, no, that's a good flag, and that's part of the design, is to have that railing around and the ability to add gates and so on, just to provide both off the street, safety, security, as well as on site with children or anything like that. So certainly something that I've heard from my client already as part of this design.
Okay, thank you. That's about it. I wondered if work had started as well from the Google Earth image. And I'm not sure the date of that image. Has work been going on for some time?
To be perfectly honest, the complete history of the site for the actual building site, I'm not entirely familiar of. There has been some previous site disturbance by the client on where this is now proposed, and I don't have the records of what's gone on there, or any permits in the past, but I could pull that up for you for the next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Evan. I think we have, sorry, you have to just press the button there, sir.
Hi, I'm Troy, the owner. Initially, this project started over a year ago. I came in and supplied a building permit for the project. Speaking with the inspectors at that time, they said that there's no problem with the pool being in this location, no problem with the idea of having it in the front yard. I didn't realize there was a height variance. The inspector didn't tell me that there was a height variance. I had actually submitted a building permit, had the engineering done for this. And then we came into the issues of the inspector didn't quite know that I didn't know either, that we weren't allowed to have a pool in the front yard, and that there was a height variance dealing with because of the steep slope action happening in the yard. So that's, we had a driveway put in a year ago through a building permit. And during that time, I just had the excavator move this soil where we were going to put the pool, because it was economically the best way about doing it, because it was just done at that time. And that was over a year ago when and then we got into this whole process of having to have variances and so forth. So that's why the excavation has happened on terms of that. So we have tarped it off and then done all the studies, and here we are, I guess a year later. So, yes.
All right, thank you for that, Troy. I appreciate the insight.
And just in regards to the pool and the safety for children, obviously I've got 4 children actually. So the pool is up 12 feet from the actual road. So if a neighboring child would want to come up into the pool, they do have to come up a significant distance up into our top yard to be able to get up the pool, which will be fenced anyways. Both my children, yet young, were very much swimmers at a younger age, and they both do swim right now. So they are going to be continuing the swimming in the pool. So, yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, we do, for the record. Okay, any other questions from committee members at all? No. Oh, I see Katrina.
I just had like the same kind of concerns that Dean had, like with the safety of the gate, which you've already kind of addressed. But what about the neighbors? Like, do they know that what your intention is? And you haven't had any like negative feedback or anything? Because I know that there was a statement saying that letters were going to go out to the neighbors, but if we approve it tonight and then the letters go out and then the neighbors aren't happy, like I'm just wondering how that works, or how.
I've spoken with all of the neighbors. We're really good friends with our neighbors that we're going to be bordering on the property line with them. And they have no issues with any of it. They'll probably be coming over and using it. We have a very good relationship, but we use each other's driveways to deliver chopped firewood and so forth. So they're good. good folks. And I have not spoken to the people way up and behind us, which are probably 100 yards away from us through
Right.
tree cover. I haven't spoken to the people at the top of the mountain, just the people on the left and the right and in front of us. So
Excellent. Okay, thank you. That was it.
Great, thank you, Katrina. Any additional questions at all? Okay, seeing none, I just add some comments. I think all very great questions. You know, I had minor concerns maybe about the neighbors, but I think for me, those questions have been answered. Having looked at the property, you see the greenery kind of at the front somewhat shields it from view. It's pretty far back. I think kind of a unique piece of property that the main building is very much removed from the road, and placing it where it is, you know, had the main dwelling been forward slightly because of the design of the property, it would be really like a non-question, you know, would never have even come before a committee. It's merely kind of semantics. I think, to me, I try to look at the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. And, you know, the letter of the law is one thing. The spirit is really to make sure that, you know, you don't, as Councillor Jansen alluded to, have, you know, a pool that's visible in a front yard where, you know, kids riding by at night could just hop the fence and hop in. And, you know, and I think this situation isn't that. So myself, I'm going to support the staff recommendation, but I'll just see first if there's any other motion from the table here. I'll move the recommendation. Councillor Jansen has moved the recommendation. Okay, and then I'll call the vote. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, that moves us on to item 5.2. I believe Kelsey is here to speak to rezoning of 376 and 394 Royal Bay Drive, as well as 3479 Wishart Road. Go ahead, Kelsey.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. So yes, agenda item 5.2, rezoning 376 and 394 Royal Bay Drive and 3479 Wishart Road. The subject properties are located in the Royal Bay neighborhood with access off of Royal Bay Drive. The site gradually slopes down toward the rear to a city-owned right-of-way. The neighborhood is primarily residential with a range of built forms, including townhomes and a small lot subdivision. The properties are currently zoned CD 18 and are designated as neighborhood in the OCP. The applicant is proposing to rezone to the existing RBCD 5 zone to enable a 27-unit townhouse development. The applicant is also proposing a placemaking and beautification plan for the city's right-of-way. The applicant also has a development permit for the neighboring site at 3439 Trumpeter Street. There is no vehicle or no public vehicle access through the sites via Royal Bay Drive or Trumpeter Street. The neighborhood designation supports ground-oriented residential up to 3 stories, including townhomes. The designation is also expected to maintain the existing character and scale of existing residential areas while increasing housing diversity. Other policies include improving the public realm for pedestrians and creating direct walking connections through residential areas. The applicant has proposed a placemaking and beautification plan and worked with staff to activate the unused space by providing a decorative compass with a West Coast inspired mosaic, a little library, wayfinding signage, and other public realm improvements. The Royal Bay Local Area Plan in the OCP outlines policies that reflect a sense of place, and staff are of the opinion this submission may achieve those goals. A detailed plan will be required prior to development permit issuance as outlined in the development agreement conditions. Development notification signs have been posted on site, one facing Royal Bay Drive and one facing the city's right-of-way. Postcards and newspaper ads will be sent prior to considering readings of the amending bylaw. So committee may wish to consider recommending to council that the required community amenity contributions be reduced by 50% to account for the in-kind placemaking and beautification plan. In-kind community amenity contributions are direct public benefit amenities provided by an applicant as part of a rezoning application. These are physical amenities such as a plaza or public realm improvements on or around the subject property. As outlined in the development agreement, the applicant will provide a cash reconciliation to the city if the placemaking plan is determined to be lower than the 50% reduction. The staff recommendation also includes green building features and a lot consolidation requirement. So other options committee may wish to consider recommending is removing that 50% reduction, that staff provide additional information, the application be denied, or another option identified by committee. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and the applicant is also here to present. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Kelsey. I think we'll hold off on questions until we hear from the applicant. So I believe we have the team from Abstract here to share with us. Welcome.
That looks like it's on. Yeah. Good evening. Thanks for having us here this evening. We do have a short presentation. Both myself and a colleague will be presenting. On that note, my name is Nicholas Standeven. I'm the VP of Development and a partner with Abstract Developments. We're really thrilled to share our application for our latest townhome community in the city of Colwood here this evening. However, before we dive into the specific presentation materials, pardon me, just like to take the opportunity to say thank you to staff for their support and collaboration with us on this application. We've really appreciated working with the wide number of staff, including Kelsey, and the communication effectiveness and just clarity that staff have provided have been a huge benefit. And throughout the process, working with City of Colwood has been a refreshing and really positive experience. To advance the slide, it looks like I just use this, is that right? Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So as I mentioned, I'm joined by a number of colleagues. Mackenzie Godfrey, who will be joining me here at the podium shortly, is a development manager and lead for the project, as well as Christy Irving, our development coordinator. So with all of us here in attendance this evening, happy to answer any questions that might come up. We also wanted to share a bit of an outline of the process today that's led us from our initial start with the project through to this evening. We began our application process by hosting a number of online community engagement sessions, both in the spring of 2023 in order to gather feedback from the community and to help us get a better sense of what people thought was important about the neighborhood and the character of the existing community. We found that an extremely helpful step. It's informed our design, and it's a piece of the process that we bring to all of our projects. From there, we made our initial rezoning application in July of 2023. And since then, we've been endorsed by the Design Review Committee in October of last year. Since then, we've also resubmitted to provide some additional information as recently as January of this year. Through that, we were able to incorporate a number of important pieces of feedback that we'd received from the DRC and Colwood staff in general. And we're excited to be here this evening in hopes of being able to proceed to council as the next step. Just a little bit about us. We have deep roots as a local builder with a long track record of building homes in the CRD overall. Over the last 25 years, we've built over 620 homes across the region. We've been awarded the Green Builder of the Year award a number of times, and we've won Best Project of the Year multiple times, including the 2 projects shown on the right-hand side of the screen. This is also our second project in the city of Colwood, with our first project named Etta, located just adjacent this subject property at 3439 Trumpeter. We also wanted to share just a few precedent images this evening before we get into the main presentation. On this slide, you see a number of our past projects that are either completed or underway, and also 2 projects from the architectural team, the designers behind this design, really just highlighting the high level of detail and building articulation and overall spirit of the architectural expression that we're hoping to achieve here at this subject site as well. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to my colleague, Mackenzie. Thanks again.
Push the button. Okay. And push this button. There we go. Thank you, Nicholas. This site is located within the community of Royal Bay on the edge of the Meadows neighborhood and is made up of 3 individual vacant lots. This area is highly walkable and rich in natural amenities and recreational activities. The newly created multi-use pathway is located adjacent our site and directs pedestrian traffic to Murray's Pond Park, the Northridge Trail, and through the rest of the Royal Bay neighborhoods. There are 3 transit routes close to the site within a 10-minute walk, as well as commercial amenities and Royal Bay Secondary School, 4-minute drive or approximately 20-minute walk. This is a more zoomed in view of the site. So you can see Murray's Pond Park to the southeast and then Northridge Park to the northwest. There's also existing single family residential adjacent the site, and just down on Royal Bay roads is some multifamily attached residential housing as well. So it fits contextually within our proposed development, maintaining the existing character of the neighborhood while also increasing housing options for the community. So into policy context, our request to rezone the site is consistent with the neighborhood land use designation contemplated by the OCP, which supports ground-oriented multi-unit residential. As you will see, we are also aligned with the Colwood strategic plan by integrating elements such as placemaking, frontage improvements, and pathway connections. These are designed to help promote family-friendly neighborhoods, improve public safety, social connection, and regional connectivity. Another key benefit is the delivery of 27 homes, which provide more diverse and affordable housing options in the neighborhood for families, downsizers, or even first-time buyers. So I talked about the greater neighborhood context. As Nicholas mentioned, we have our edit project adjacent to the site, which is currently in the building permit phase. The 2 projects are visually related and connected and share a similar design language. In fact, we've engaged the same design team for this project as well to ensure continuity and a seamless transition between both sites and between neighborhoods as well. Located at the center is a future road connection intended for emergency vehicle traffic only. This was a big desire from community and staff. And we have also treated this area, as Kelsey mentioned, as a public amenity. And we'll go into a bit more detail about that shortly. So for our proposed site plan, we're proposing a collection of 27 homes, so 3 bedrooms on the upper floors, and then some homes will offer a flex space on the lower floor, so possibly a 4th bedroom option as well. Each home will have 2-car parking through a mix of apron and single car garage as well as double car garages. So this adds a differentiation in appearance, but also in housing options. It also reduces the amount of visible parking on the exterior and achieves realistic parking needs for homeowners. Each home will have a level 2 electric vehicle plug-in and bike parking. Concrete banding through the strata lane will provide visual delineation and safe path for pedestrians. We have tried to maximize tree and shrub plantings throughout the site to bring biodiversity and net positive canopy gain back to the site, as it's currently pretty much a vacant parcel. We are proposing native and adaptive plantings and layered landscaping placed thoughtfully throughout. In terms of environmental performance, we are committed to achieving the targets as set out at the time of building permit, which we anticipate to be SEP Code 3 and zero carbon SEP Code emissions level 4. Homes will be equipped with energy efficient heat pumps and be sprinklered throughout. In collaboration with Parks and Engineering, we have proposed a number of frontage improvements that we feel will improve the lives and safety of the community. So you can see on the image on the right is a current condition. And these improvements will also address some of the concerns and wishes from the community for more bench seating, more connection, improvements to the flow of traffic. A large cul-de-sac has been incorporated to allow for safe turning of vehicles. The sidewalk has also been extended around the cul-de-sac and connected to a new pathway connection for the multi-use pathway, which is widened for pedestrian and cycle flow of traffic. Bike letdowns, timber bench seating, landscaping, trees, and an entry monumentation have also been incorporated into the proposed design. So as you drive down Royal Bay Road, it doesn't really feel like an end of road condition, but more a kind of beautiful, inviting transition from public to private realm. There's a municipal right-of-way between our edit project and this project, and to mark the significance of this location, we are proposing a substantive placemaking package. I know Kelsey has provided a bit of an overview, but I did want to touch again on this exciting part of the application. Through collaboration with planning, we wanted to create a West Coast inspired space that enhances social connection and celebrates this location as a point of convergence. At the heart of the plan is a nautical compass designed with detailed pavers and a striking mosaic inspired by the Pacific Northwest. A north directional arrow was added to kind of create a both functional and playful feature that really allows people to stop and interact with the space and appreciate it. Removable bollards will permit emergency vehicle access only to allow the space to be enjoyed at the pedestrian level, while also maintaining a safe travel along the Northridge Trail, which was important for the community. We have also incorporated timber bench seating areas, interactive nodes complemented by rounded edges and softened by trees and plantings. We really wanted this space to feel inclusive and welcoming to attract passerbys to stop and enjoy the space. Other elements include a little library for the community to exchange books and directional wayfinding to the surrounding trail networks. So this is a rendering, and as you can see on the image on the left, it's kind of shown from Royal Bay Roads, looking at the cul-de-sac into the development. While design elements get massaged and refined through our development permit phase, we have already put a lot of thought and care into the design. So here you can see we are proposing a mix of materials and colored, varied roof lines, layered landscaping and individualized entries. The homes also step down in the site to reduce massing impact. And we've treated the side of building 4, which is at the end of the cul-de-sac, as a perceived frontage to create visual interest and mark the prominence at the entry to the development. We hope that you can see we have put considerable effort into designing an attractive application for this beautiful location in Royal Bay. We have done our best to respond to the community and staff input, as well as direction from the OCP, strategic plan, and broader needs of the community in terms of providing new housing options. We also wanted to thank staff again for all the collaboration and feedback throughout the process. We've really enjoyed working with your team. And this concludes our presentation, but we're now happy to answer any questions from the committee.
Great. Thank you, Mackenzie, and thank you, Nicholas. Appreciate the information from you both. And before I go to questions, I thank you for your comments about the efforts that staff have made. I too have heard some great things of late from people in the community and have been remiss in passing it on, but our CAO is in the back there, so he's heard it all now. But I think that's something that we should take note of, that not only do you put a great deal of work into this, but staff work alongside you with that. So I appreciate you recognizing that. With that note, I will open it up to the table for questions. We are breaking protocol here, and I'm going to Councillor Jansen first.
A few things. I like the design. It's very interesting. In no particular order. I like the trail access. I see one of the connection. I had some questions, and now I see it between the buildings there. There's a connection that heads up towards Wishart Road in between the two developments.
The Northridge Trail.
Yeah. So I see that now, because that was one of my questions. But can you speak to that? I take it that'll be fully public accessed. It'll belong to us kind of deal. It's a right of way through there. Okay, perfect. What this community does like its pathway connections, of which we're replete with them down there, and I'd like to see that continue. The setback to the multi-use path. I know this is not detailed, but I mean the setback, it doesn't look like there is one to the multi-use path at the back of building, forgive me, building 4 and 5. And I know that's not the intent for this particular, but do we know?
Hello. Okay. I do believe we are meeting the setbacks as set out. It's a kind of a funny, unique site. So we had a kind of your typical setbacks that we had to apply to a really atypical site, still needing to provide the access through to eventually Trumpeter Street. So there's, what we're treating as front setbacks and such are a bit different here, but we are adhering to all of our setbacks requirement. I believe it's 1.2 meter setback. Yeah.
I don't see much in the way of sort of on-site amenities
Mhm.
for the property itself. Is there thought been put into that? And again, that might not be the intent of why we're here, but I'd love to hear what your vision is.
Yeah, so there has been a lot of thought, and part of the discussions around the public placemaking was a bit in lieu of an on-site amenity. We are kind of rich with amenities in around the area. Again, with the constraint of the site itself, we did try to focus the attention on placing a really substantive placemaking package and public amenity on the right-of-way area. And then, have this vast trail connections that connect to the greater natural amenities in around the area.
I think what you've presented is great, but a 2-year-old could care less about your compass rose, but they care more about a place to play. And sometimes people come before us and they have creatively applied some space for young people, which clearly will be moving in here at some point. I'll leave that thought with you. I don't expect a reply. And I don't want to slow this down, but yeah. So suites, are there suites contemplated for this configuration at all, like lock-off suites or anything like that?
So all of the homes will be the 3-bedroom or 4-bedroom configurations.
Okay.
And then just to add to the other point, totally understand. So our other project does offer an on-site amenity with a play area, but on this site in the public area, there is a little library. I have a kid myself, like they really enjoy kind of interacting with the space. The idea is like with the north directional arrow, you can stop, play, orient yourself, you can sit. There's also some bench seating closer to the multi-use pathway, the kind of community book exchange, and then Meadows Park is within a very short walk as well.
Right. Which is a public space.
Mhm. That's correct. Yeah.
So can you I think some mistakes have been made in the past for similar developments where the apron parking is so small that it doesn't fit someone's F-150 pickup truck. Can you speak to the size of that apron parking for, I guess, what's that, building 1, 2, 3? It's not very clear.
Yeah, so it's buildings 1, 2, and 3 have the apron, so it is designed for 2-car parking. So on the apron, I do believe it's more designed for a small car stall. Sometimes some vehicles can fit a little bit over that, but there also is intent that there's 2 vehicle parkings for both for the home. So potentially they would just park theirs inside.
So the garage is big enough for a truck, but not the apron. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I believe so, yes.
Okay,
I don't
because
know if you want to, if you had any.
Yeah, it really depends on the size of the
Sure.
vehicle, but the garage parking is the larger of those 2
Okay,
parking
yeah.
spaces.
Yeah.
you're inviting people here and I'm telling you, they're going to bring their trucks. Because
And there is visitor stalls as well. So there's 3 on site, 2 of which are accessible size stalls.
I mean, for the resident, sorry, I think some mistakes have been made in the size of apron parking
Mhm.
for people that have very large work trucks,
Mhm.
which then they're incompatible with the small apron parking, so they go out on the public street.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
a cause and effect type situation. I know we can't control everything, but my point is an extra foot or 2 on the apron might make the difference
Mhm.
rather
Yeah,
than
it's-
having the parks, them parked out in the cul-de-sac, for instance.
Yeah. No, I appreciate the comment. It's definitely with the size of the site, it's a very kind of unique configuration. So working with between setbacks and, trying to maximize 2 vehicle parking for each home. Like I said, I would probably have to look to park inside in that case.
So, and further to the point, a big part, again, some developments have been very creative with storage space. Because again, if you don't provide storage space, it goes in the garage, which means the F-150 definitely can't pick in there and fit in there. And then it is out in the cul-de-sac. Again, cause and effect. So I would love to see you, at least be creative with some storage space. I'm not sure if this is on slab or if there's a crawl space or what have you, but again, I think some mistakes have been made. And so people's garages fill up and then the apron's too small. And then all the cars are out in the street. Visitor parking, 3 spots. that's consistent with the bylaw, do you feel that's enough for your development?
Yeah, we feel that is consistent and it's enough. And like I mentioned, we are meeting as well the accessible requirements as well. So yes.
Some people choose to have a little bit more so that there is a buffer, is my point, because 3 does seem a little bit slender for 55 units.
Yeah, we really did try to maximize what we could with the constraints of the site, but we do feel that, you know, it meets the bylaw and it's it would be acceptable for this.
The trail access, I ticked that off. Sorry, can't read my writing. This is a question for Kelsey, and it's about the amenity funds, if I may, for just a second. You know, the placemaking and stuff like that, I love it and it's creative. But, you know, I've seen developments pop up that have done placemaking and stuff like that, that is inconsistent with our community standards or guidelines. Will these, and I'm not just talking about compliance, I'm talking, will they look exactly the same as all the other hard work that we've done around the community with placemaking?
Thank you for the question through the chair. We will certainly try our hardest. These are renderings at this point.
I get it.
Yeah.
But they're asking for some amenity favor, and I'm inclined to agree with that, but with the caveat that, you know, I think the language was consistency. You know, in my mind, I want to lock that down, not just it's in the right ballpark. I would like to see the same signage appear on that property, directing people to the trails that we're putting around the community just to achieve consistency.
Absolutely. The wayfinding signage will be in accordance with the city's wayfinding strategy, so it will look the same as we have throughout Colwood. That will be for sure.
Super. Thank you. I've chewed up a lot of airtime. I apologize, Mr. Chair. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jansen. Any questions? I see Michael.
Thank you. I just have a follow-up question a little bit on the beautification part of the park space between the 2 units. Is the proposed strategy just looking at just the node of where the crossing point is and it doesn't extend that little bit to the south that connects the 2 properties? And hence the question is, you're going to develop these 2 properties and you've got this right of way running through it and a small landscape feature in the middle. My concern is that it just might look, you've got this wild landscape and a nice feature and then wild landscape, and it just might look a little disconnected. I don't know if there was an opportunity at the time in the discussion, the beautification, of taking a look at that whole space between the 2, and maybe that's an opportunity for you to provide that additional amenity space that Dean was mentioning as well.
Yeah, so at this time it is just the right in between, but if the applicant wishes to speak more, happy to let them speak.
Thank you, and a great point. We are planning through the development permit process and through the next layer, should we advance this evening or at some point in the future, to review the opportunities in that entire space, definitely. We do also really love the naturalized character of the existing pathway. We wouldn't want to diminish that or take away from it. So we'd want to find a way to integrate it and complement that existing character, but still create that gateway condition, if you will, to that focal point in the middle.
Mm.
Yeah.
And that's great. If you, the natural landscape, I think, is nice, but I think one thing to be aware when constructing both sites, the space in between might end up just be a bunch of tire tracks once it's finished. So it just, if it is going to be natural, then it just makes sure it's restored to something that's appropriate to the region of Colwood.
Yeah, no, fair point, and thank you for that comment. And absolutely, that's the intent. If you were to visit the site today, you'll see that it is pretty barren in terms of, you know, most of the bulk grading's been done and there's no existing plantings in that area. So we'd be looking to complete that as a composition overall. Definitely.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
James.
Hi, thank you very much. I do confess that, you know, upon seeing that area some time ago, I was very optimistic there would be a bit of a park in that particular area. I do very much like the compass wayfinding. That sort of stuff really hits home for someone like myself. And I would try to implore some form of local amenity that is available to the public just right off of that particular area, especially when you're trying to make it a space that like attracts you, distracts you, and like wants you to stay. And so something like a little very small park, if you can drop down to 26 units instead of 27 and like allocate just a little bit of space in and around that area or something to that effect for your consideration. One of the other things that I did notice was the mention of like waste bins and or recycling. But as also mentioned earlier in the report, that it is bordered by private roads for emergency vehicle throughway only. Is there a strategy for emptying those baskets and recycling when there's no access to it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we work with a number of different private collection services to ensure that there'll be access, and we actually start that planning process quite early on. Typically, for a townhome community like this, we would have the waste bin stored within each garage and then brought forward to the edge of the garage or to the edge of the apron for collection. The truck would actually service from the Royal Bay Drive side, and none of the bins would be stored on a municipal right away.
Sorry, and apologies if I misspoke. I was speaking to the public right away in that like 4 quadrant. I think there was the 2 benches, the little library, and then a place for people to throw trash. But if
Right.
it's bordered by 2 private lots, how does the public?
Pardon me, yeah, I
yeah.
misunderstood the question. Yes, so we would imagine that City of Colwood Park staff would access through the multi-use trail. We haven't confirmed that with staff, and happy to engage with them. And if there's a more appropriate place or no appropriate place for a collection bin, we'd be happy to make that modification to the design.
Okay, great. And then one point of clarification for myself in table 4 of page 8 of the report, when we're talking about the contribution, specifically the community amenity contribution, it's bringing it to a total of 202,000. Is that with the 50% discount that is being proposed, or would be without?
I'll leave it to staff to confirm, but my understanding that's inclusive of the entirety of the contribution, including the in-kind works. But I'll let Kelsey speak to that.
Yes, thank you. So table 4, the 202,000 is what the required amount of community amenity contributions are. And our staff are recommending to reduce that to maybe 101,000.
Mhm. Thank you. And that is specifically for that one location?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. And then finally, Councillor Jansen actually really did touch on a point that I see all the time but never think of is the very large vehicles, the lack of storage pushing the vehicles out. That's something that really does hit home. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Thank you for your time.
Great. Any additional questions? Seeing none, okay. I would echo maybe a couple of things. I looked at the public engagement summary. And I think really those questions are questions we'll probably hear again when it comes before council. I think there's some consistency there in that, parking always, invariably becomes a discussion topic around this table. The number of visitor sites, it's challenging, I think, when there's a minimal number. I mean, unfortunately, these things flex up and down. As somebody who lives in a multifamily, a townhome complex, I see it for endless amounts of time. The spots can be empty, and then you hit, a peak time like this last weekend, and there's not enough, and it overflows into the streets. So I know that this particular neighborhood will continue to probably raise concerns about that. The history of the site is obviously this was going to be a road. Royal Bay Drive was going to extend right down into Royal Bay. Neighbors pushed back, objecting to traffic, and that ended the nature of a road, which would have been very beneficial to Colwood. So a bit of a short-sighted decision due to some pushback. So, here we are, and I think, where I'm going with that is I'm less inclined to hear complaints from people talking about increased traffic when it comes before council, because careful what you wish for. That's where we net out on this one. But I do share the concerns around parking. I think it is something you should consider. I lived that experience where new people move in, they want to add a rec room or something, or a weight room in their garage, and they still need a place to park, and the spillover, becomes an issue. We obviously want to move to a place where that isn't the case, but we aren't downtown Victoria, we're not Vancouver. We're just not there in terms of mode shift and things. So I think we want to keep that in mind, and certainly moving forward, that choice will be kind of removed from the table anyway. But something to consider, that it is a real life challenge, certainly in our community. But beyond that, I think the other concerns that people raised were around the existing multi-use pathway. That is a critical part of the network. That little link that goes across the road, use it almost every day. I think a lot of people in the area would have been very sad to see that go. So I'm pleased to see that not only have you, found a way to incorporate it, but to actually highlight it. I think that's a key feature. I respectfully disagree with Councillor Jansen on the lack of amenities on site, just because we are in a very unique area there. We've invested a lot, and the community's invested a lot in things like Meadow Park and Quarry Park, which will eventually come across the way. So I think we're going to be okay in that regard. But I do agree with, his concerns and Michael's about what those amenities look like, making sure we extract maximum value, that it really is a highlight. And that it corresponds with the look and feel and substance of what we're doing elsewhere. So, but I've seen the projects that you do, so I have no doubt that it will be exemplary. Your reputation does precede you. So I certainly support the staff motion and look to see it elevated to council, where we'll debate all the same things over again. So I'll throw it to the floor to see if there's a motion one way or another here. Okay, I see. Michael will make the motion, I'm assuming, for the staff recommendation. Yeah, for the staff recommendation. So we'll mix it up and say, we'll call the vote, and all those who are opposed, raise your hand. No movement means unanimous. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate the presentation. And thank you, Kelsey. That then means, let me flip some pages here, that we are on everybody's favorite item. Item 6, adjournment. Do I have a mover? Katrina has moved adjournment, so we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it.